past esoteric. Quote, whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. Friedrich Nietzsche. Since perhaps the dawn of consciousness, humans have inquired about their true selves. Anyone who studies esoteric subjects will ultimately ask certain fundamental questions about their lives, such as, what is our purpose here on earth? Where do we come from? What is our reason to exist in a human body? Is everything totally random in our evolution? Are we alone in the universe? If there is intelligent life elsewhere, why have they not contacted humanity on a mass scale? Could it be we are being sheltered from knowing big picture issues? If the adept wishes to reason further, it is quite logical to raise the question that if ETs have visited here from outer space, is it possible they came here a long time ago or perhaps have never left? If they reside here and live underground or out of sight, is it possible there have been long-standing and pervasive effect of alien intervention here on Earth? If so, is there effective action we can take to undo any negative effects of their influence, or conversely, to build on their contributions? Who on earth might be helping them stay secret? What could be their motives? What is the alien agenda? While alternative history is not entirely the focus of this book, it is necessary to provide a quick overview of some sustaining and stubbornly persistent historical subjects about humanity's past esoteric consciousness on Earth. Perhaps all true history will be revealed when space and time are mastered. It should be noted that mysteries and their accompanying mystery schools are often built on lies or half-truths. Lies can be persistent because they alter facts, which are compromised of exact dates, places, and events. When truth is known, a lie no longer persists. If the exact truth is revealed, it is no longer a mystery. As we will see in the next section of this volume, there is an esoteric agenda of control behind virtually all facets of life that were once believed to be unrelated. What we'll discover in the next section is that there is an elite faction guiding most political, mass media, corporate, economic, social, governmental, some non-governmental, and even anti-establishment organizations. The long-range agenda, devised and being executed by an ultra-moneyed elite, is to control the lives of nearly every person on the planet. The most powerful weapon they hold against us is keeping the knowledge of our true nature from us, and this fosters fear. This chapter is a brief summary of past esoteric information, often kept hidden in order to keep us ignorant of our real Earth history. Yet, every so often, there is a glimmer of knowledge that helps us resolve the unanswered questions about who we are here on Earth and why. Lemuria and Atlantis. As we have seen, volcanic eruptions periodically expel such a significant mass of molten rock that the resulting vacuum beneath the Earth's crust causes vast areas of the land masses to sink below the oceans, while other sections rise up. Unquestionably, such an explosive volcanic and tectonic plate shifting event would cause an ice age, extinctions of many life forms, and other relatively long-term changes lasting hundreds or thousands of years. The continental areas occupied by both The Lemuria and Atlantis civilizations were covered with volcanic matter and then submerged, leaving very little evidence that they ever existed except for the legends of a global flood, which prevail in nearly every culture on Earth. Those who survived Lemuria are generally regarded as the genius of Oriental races and cultures, while those who survived Atlantis migrated to Central America, Europe, and the pre-Sands civilization of Egypt, called the Osiris Empire. The accounts of the flood and other descriptions of cataclysmic events in Genesis is considered by some researchers to be parallel to that of Atlantis because of the many accounts of Atlantis being located in every part of the world. The exception is Plato's location of Atlantis, described in the dialogues of Timaeus and Critias. Interestingly, there is no evidence anywhere on Earth of an evolutionary transition that resulted in the sophisticated mathematics, language, writing, religion, architecture, and cultural traditions in Egypt or any of the pyramid building civilizations. These cultures, replete with all of the details of racial body types, hairstyles, facial makeup, rituals, moral codes, and so forth, simply appeared as completely integrated packages. In fact, growing evidence indicates that the technology and civilizations installed on Earth from the Lemuria and the Atlantis periods were imported for other worlds, or pre-packaged, as it were. The highly advanced technologies we have today are more of a recollection of those times, as they were brought here along with human passengers who did not originally come from Earth. It is from these oblique origins that our past esoteric traditions begin. The Osiris Empire. Almost everything taught to us in school about our ancient history is misleading. The origins of humans, ancient civilizations, and the purpose of the pyramids is greatly distorted. Homo sapiens sapiens is not a result of a slow, percolating evolution process, and biologists will never find a missing link because there is none to be found. The intelligent human is a product of genetic engineering. Sumerians are not the beginning of the civilized race of people, but rather the beginning of another cycle of high civilization. And finally, the original pyramids, the most superior and oldest, were constructed by advanced builders who knew Earth energy, astronomy, the long count of time, and megalithic construction better than we can possibly comprehend today. The Osiris Empire of pre-Sands Egypt was an extension of Atlantis, and it is the paramount surviving relic from our antediluvian past. All of the pyramid civilizations of Earth, including the ancient Bosnians, the Mayan, and of course the ancient Egyptians, were built by the progeny of Lemuria and Atlantis. However, the other pyramid civilizations of Mesopotamia, China, Europe, and Mesoamerica arose at much later dates. They all combine sophisticated mathematics and technology metaphors of their mystery schools and imbued with rich symbolism. The allure of aesthetics and mystery led to the creation of intricate rituals, astronomical alignments, secret rites, additional massive monuments, marvelous architecture, artistically rendered hieroglyphics, and human animal gods that were designed to create a mystery that can't be solved by our advanced earthly human population. The mysteries diverted attention away from the truth that the human condition was captured, given amnesia, transported and imprisoned on a planet far, far away from home. In the year 10,450 BCE, plans were drafted by Thoth for the construction of a great pyramid on the Giza Plateau in present-day Egypt. Although other dating puts its construction thousands of years later, its unique attributes are different from all the other pyramids, and this would suggest an earlier building date. The mysterious Sphinx appears to be guarding secrets below the sands of Egypt. The Sphinx is the oldest relic of the Osiris Empire, with erosion-bearing watermarks on all sides of the giant sculpture that prove it dates from pre-Sands Egypt. Below the Sphinx are many levels of underground chambers, once said to contain an ancient hall of records, a chamber filled with extremely advanced knowledge. The other pyramids in the Giza complex were completed many thousands of years after the Sphinx, around 4,470 years ago, but they could have been supplanted and buried much older pyramids constructed some 12,000 years ago in the time frame of the Osiris Empire. Some theories of the Osiris Empire propose that the world's pyramids were made of crystal, or that their tops were capped off with a crystalline substance, including those discovered recently beneath the Atlantic Ocean. The long-lost capstone of the Great Pyramid is thought to have been a giant crystal. When fully functional, could these pyramids actually generate, store, and distribute Earth energy on demand? It is intriguing that decades ago, experimenters discovered that pyramids do tend to act like natural electrical capacitors, both gathering and storing energy around them, especially through the top. The larger the pyramid, the greater the capacity to gather and store energy. A pyramid's composition is also important. If a pyramid is made entirely of crystal or featuring a capstone of crystal, the structure's power vastly increases. The pyramid shape, say investigators, is intrinsic to pyramid power. The shape is an architectural feature that is proven to function as an energy accumulator and amplifier of energetic forces. The Great Pyramid. For centuries, the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau in Egypt has intrigued and mystified visitors. It seems to incorporate vast troves of encoded ancient wisdom in at least two major realms. The first is an embodiment of mathematical and astronomical knowledge. The second type of ancient wisdom deals with the expansion of consciousness. The Great Pyramid, commonly called the Cheops Pyramid, encodes both the pi and phi proportions in the relationship between its height, its base, and its four sides. Astronomical data are also encoded in the Great Pyramid, such as the distance between the Earth and the Sun, the weights of the Earth and the Moon, and the radius of the Earth. The pyramid is structurally a prism, a three-dimensional triangular depiction of the heavens resonating with the planet. The prism structure design would magnify, amplify, and transfer a unified beam of energy to the other Giza pyramids that could be used for celestial navigation and particularly energy recharging of advanced airships. The original polished outer casing of the prism and its unique construction would also allow the Great Pyramid to be a geodetic energy source and possibly a very powerful beam weapon. The King's Chamber, located deep within the center of the pyramid structure, is largely regarded as a room used for initiation rituals, specifically those that assisted in the opening of dimensional gates. Externally, we can see that the Great Pyramid symbolizes the creative principle of nature, and it also beautifully illustrates the principles of geometry, mathematics, astronomy, and astrology. Within the building itself were the location of the mysteries of initiation. It was a temple of esoteric initiation, or perhaps a baptismal font. Upon emerging from a night or longer in the king's chamber, a neophyte was born again, and then became an adept. Many people who have visited the Great Pyramid have experienced mystical encounters when residing within, that ranging from ancient Greek pilgrims to the French general Napoleon Bonaparte, as well as initiates of the enigmatic mystery schools of the Near East. The Great Pyramid is the most fascinating pyramid worldwide. It is located exactly at the center of the Earth's land masses. Such precise global configurations could only be derived from an aerial perspective above the Earth or from outer space. The ratio between the height of the Great Pyramid and its perimeter is the same as the ratio between the Earth and its circumference. The exact measurements and the fact that there are doors within the air shaft suggests a machine-like function. Charting the mathematical calculations of the geodetic center of the Earth's continent could not be made in any other way except by utilizing advanced airplanes or spacecrafts. In addition, the 4 air shafts of the Great Pyramid point precisely to the key stars of Orion, Sirius, Thuban, and Polaris, as seen from the time frame of the Osiris Empire. The alignments of the 3 Giza pyramids on the ground matches perfectly with the alignment of the constellation of Orion, as seen in the sky from Giza, relative to the Nile River, as representing the Milky Way galaxy in the night sky. The placement on the ground of these structures have geodetic or astronomical significance relative to various stars in our galactic region. The configuration of the 3 main pyramids on the Giza Plateau were intended to create a mirror image of our solar system on Earth with certain key constellations. Egyptian and Hebrew mystery schools. Many centuries after the Great Pyramids were constructed, a man named Moses grew up in the royal household of the pharaoh Amenhotep III and his son Akhenaten, Akhenaten's wife Nefertiti, and their son Tutankhamun. The pharaoh's attempts in the 14th century BCE to teach certain beings on earth the truth that they are, themselves, immortal spiritual beings, was part of a plan to overthrow the fictional, metaphorical, anthropomorphic panoply of gods created by an old Egyptian mystery cult known in Egypt as the priests of Amun. For what reason would any civilization devote so many resources to construct so many elaborate buildings? To glorify the life of a single king, or to create a mysterious illusion in which an adept could become a master? The pyramids and many ancient stone monuments erected worldwide could easily be called mystery monuments. There have been enigmatic secret societies dating back to the Old Empire and throughout the long course of history in ancient Egypt. The pharaoh Akhenaten received the new teachings because he was heavily influenced by his personal ambition for self-glorification. Because Akhenaten rebelled against the established system in favor of his own new interpretation, there is an intact record of his own secret society. He altered the concept of the individual spiritual being and embodied the concept of a monotheistic sun god called Aten. But his reign was brief. A war of religious conquest against the Egyptian mystery cult prompted Pharaoh Akhenaten to abolish the priesthood of Amun. He then moved the capital of Egypt from Thebes to the new location at Amara, at the exact geodetic center of Egypt. However, this plot to overthrow established religious control was quickly disrupted. The reign of Akhenaten, although overthrown and abolished within decades by the former priesthood, had larger consequences, primarily the spread of secret wisdom outside the confines of Egypt. In discussing Hebrew secret societies from which Moses was a direct descendant, it should be noted that there is no physical evidence for Solomon's temple. Neither is there any significant evidence for Solomon being a genuine person himself, other than references in the biblical texts. Nor do we have any convincing evidence for the Queen of Sheba or any of the other Old Testament characters enmeshed in the record. But there are certain nuggets of wisdom that come from the people described in the Bible. The idea of one God was perpetuated by the Hebrew leader Moses while he was in Egypt. He left Egypt with his adopted people, the Jewish slaves of Egypt. Thereafter, the Jewish followers, who trusted the word of Moses implicitly, worshiped a single God they called Yahweh. This same monotheistic entity is also the basis for Christianity and the Islamic faiths. Giants from our distant past. Before the Osiris Empire of pre-Sans Egypt, and even before the civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria, there existed extremely large humanoids on Earth. Several modern researchers and scholars, most notably Eric von Daniken and Zechariah Sitchin, have proposed that alien beings not only visited Earth in our far distant past, but also influenced our history, mythology, religion, and physical evolution. One commonality of nearly every religion worldwide is the concept of a hierarchy of superior beings. These beings have a leader, ruler, or king, commonly referred to as God. The adherents of certain faiths are known to do this Lord's bidding and follow his orders. Sometimes these orders can involve different degrees of manipulation or actions concerning humanity. According to ancient alien theorists, these beings, existing as a collective or secret assembly, are responsible for the creation of humans and have bequeathed us with civilization. As examined previously, the Nephilim were giants who once allegedly lived on Earth. They were the hybrid offspring of intercourse between human women and ancient extraterrestrials. More specifically, the ancient books of Genesis and Enoch tell us that spirit beings known as the Watchers descended to Earth, mated with our women, and produced a hybrid race of offspring known as the Nephilim, or as the Genesis accounts in the Old Testament would leave us to believe, the Nephilim were some kind of bizarre giants whose offspring mated with the offspring of Adam and Eve. They came from a planet variously known as Herculaneum, Nibiru, Planet X, Tyche, Nemesis, or Wormwood. Such tales are as old as humanity itself. These histories and accounts of visitations and subsequent mixed blood alien human races comprise the bulk of the world's myths, legends, religions, and superstitions. Clay tablets dating back 5,000 years or more are found in abundance throughout the entire Mesopotamian region. These Assyrian and Babylonian cuneiform tablets record epic poems, cosmological tales, mathematical equations, astronomical data, temple records, histories of the kings, grammar and vocabulary texts, plus detailed records associated with names, genealogies, and deeds, powers, and assignments of the gods. The vast library of Ashurnabal found in the ancient city of Nineveh, along with many other tablets in the Mesopotamian region, have offered us a figurative window into the past from which we can capture a compelling glimpse of the Sumerian way of life. The Nephilim global rule. The Sumerian, Indus, and Egyptian cultures seem to have suddenly appeared in a very refined and advanced form at their earliest beginnings, then lapsed into a more primitive state. From the onset of their mutual cultures, Sumerian, Indus, and Egyptian cities were complete with schools, splendid homes, indoor plumbing, industrial faculties, libraries, and even hospitals. Clay models of livers have been found in Sumeria, suggesting that anatomy and medicine were taught through the use of models of human organs. Skeletal remains recovered from Mesopotamian grave sites show evidence of brain surgery being conducted. Advanced agricultural techniques and animal husbandry were also commonplace in these earliest of cultures. Ancient alien theorists cite that the knowledge of the Nephilim was passed on to humans. There is evidence for Nephilim living in North America, including skeletons of giants unearthed in what is today the United States, and in archaeological formations that predate Native American culture. The bones of giant humanoids found in the Ohio mounds were said to be of beings who were 2.5 to 4 meters in height, with 6-fingered hands, double rows of teeth, and fair or red hair. Similar giant skeletons have also been recovered on the Channel Islands off the California coast and in northern Nevada caves that once fronted the massive inland Lake Lahoshan, which drained at the conclusion of the last ice age. The Smithsonian Institution confiscated the bones of all the giants from the Ohio Valley and elsewhere, starting in the 19th century until the present day. If any still exist or new bones are uncovered, and if it were possible to take some DNA sampling of the bones, it might be discovered that they belong to the Nephilim, or the fallen angels of the Old Testament. Many of the mound sites in Ohio have been completely destroyed or covered up, sometimes with buildings constructed on top of them or reconstructed as tourist sites. The giant remains on Catalina Island off the southern California shores were determined to have lived during a period when now extinct animals were still roaming the planet. Burial mounds were exhumed in the 1920s and 30s, and bones of giants were found to have been engaged in some sort of battle. But the bones were whisked away and then mysteriously vanished. The reason the bones are kept from the public is that they provide evidence contrary to Darwinian theory. They're not entirely human. Our entire conception of who we are as people in the world, to say nothing of our ancient history, would have to undergo a major revision. Biblical descriptions. The biblical account of the sons of God are clearly the gods of the ancients. The descriptions are far too precise to not be so. They had children by human females. These were the men of renown, such as Hercules. They produced giants as well, such as Atlas, and also enjoyed mystical powers, such as Enoch of Genesis 5, who never perished but was simply taken away by God. According to Genesis 5, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. The name Nephilim indicates that they were giants. The sons of God indicate the fallen angels. Therefore, both giants and fallen angels were here on earth. The interbreeding indicates that humankind's corrupted state became more and more evil. Maybe the mythical creatures did once exist. Perhaps they were a genetic experiment made by humans. We also know that breeding of certain animals with others produces a different kind of animal, and this also applies to agriculture. Hybridization occurred long before the modern science of genetics. It is not improbable that the same type of breeding was used in earlier times, which could have produced the mythological creatures of yore. If Hercules, Atlas, and other mythical humans were real, then so too could mythical creatures such as the Nephilim have been. There are many current events that are in harmony with and can be interpreted as fulfilling biblical prophecies. Strife in the Middle East has reached a fervid pitch, while the moneyed elite have assumed control of the planet and all its occupants. The Bible codes, or Torah codes, which are purportedly a set of secret messages encoded within the Hebrew text of the Torah, provides descriptive information on events that occur in our history. As prophesied in the Bible, we are nearing a great deception that could involve the creation of a new race of Nephilim, or the return of the Anunnaki. Those humans who turn to the dark side and accept the mark of the beast may be offered the chance to live hundreds of years disease-free. The alien implant studied by Dr. Roger Lear, a podiatrist, may be a prototype for the mark and capable of changing a person's DNA. The advent of RFID implants in people also evoke dark shades of biblical prophecies. Equally as insidious, there are accounts of sinister, black-eyed children and super soldiers being born in test tube laboratories. Tibetan legacy. Very early Tibetan legend speaks of a former glorious civilization on Earth when all people possessed telepathic abilities. Regardless of local language, this highly advanced race of humans could convey their thoughts telepathically, travel in the astral plane, see via clairvoyance, and levitate themselves or heavy objects. People in this age, before the so-called fall of man, were people with an amazing ability to utilize their light bodies at will. One version of the fall of man is that humans abused these occult powers and used them for self-interest rather than for the development of humankind as a whole. The universal capacity of telepathy was lost, and in the West, it has been represented as the Tower of Babel in the Bible, whereupon humans were thrust back into dense third-dimensional bodies. While Tibetan lamas never forgot these ancient human abilities, they have kept them to themselves throughout the ages. It was not known until recent Chinese occupation that these remarkable human abilities became known to the Western world, and then only gradually. In the Tibetan capital Lhasa, there is a major mystical shrine called the Patala. It is said to sit atop an ancient cavern and tunnel system that reaches throughout the Tibetan plateau and possibly beyond. Although no one is allowed entry, it is reported that deep inside the Patala mountain is a veritable labyrinth of hidden caves and corridors. This subterranean system of passageways is dominated by a huge cave with several passages radiating out from it, including one that ends at a sacred lake. The lake contains several islands that were once used for initiation of lamas. The lake flows into an underground river, which empties into the river Tsang Po, some 65 kilometers away. The subterranean chambers under the Patala are said to contain all the jewels and treasures of Tibet, along with a gigantic golden statue of the Buddha. One of the most curious underground rooms is the Temple of Secret Wisdom, containing bodies of a giant race of people unknown to modern archaeologists. The mountain and caves are believed to have originated before the planet's last polar shift, a time when Tibet was a country at sea level. The plates shifted, new continents formed, and Tibet arose as the Himalayas thrust the land skyward. Successive monasteries were built and rebuilt upon Patala Mountain, a mountain that has a treasure trove of secret passageways and ancient esoteric knowledge from the very early days. The ancient Vedic rishis, in all their wisdom, as early as 8000 BCE, said that our universe is not woven from matter, but made up of consciousness and energy. These ancient seers and channels with 12-strand DNA and king-size pineal glands have told us that the universal laws are clear. Our attitude about our lives shapes everything around us. They said that the entire universe emerged from thoughts. According to quantum physics, the double slit experiment clearly illustrates that we cannot have a universe without the mind entering into it, as it actually shapes the very thing that is perceived. Therefore, our current thoughts shape our future lives. When each of us visualizes positive outcomes, we can generate powerful thoughts and feelings of having them now, thus making our aspirations materialize. The law of attraction returns the reality exactly as we visualized it in our mind. Matter, energy, and consciousness are interchangeable. In search of Shambhala. For thousands of years, there were rumors circulating that somewhere in Tibet, among the snowy Himalayan peaks and secluded valley, there was an untouched paradise, a kingdom where peace and universal policy were the law of the land. The kingdom was called Shambhala, yet its exact whereabouts were unknown. James Hilton wrote about this mystical city in his 1933 book called Lost Horizon. Hollywood played its part in the 1960 film production entitled Shangri-La. Even James Redfield, the famous author of the Celestine Prophecy, wrote a book called The Secret of Shambhala, in search of the 11th insight. The mystery of Shambhala is also considered a source for the Kalchakra, which is the highest branch of mystical and esoteric teachings in Tibet. There are records of this kingdom in ancient texts, such as the Kalachakra and Zhang Zhuang, which existed long before Buddhism entered Tibet. The word Shambhala comes from the Sanskrit word meaning place of peace or place of silence. This kingdom, whose capital is Kapala, is ruled by the kings of a dynasty called Kulaka or Kulakai. This is where all living things are faultless and where the semi-perfect meet and jointly guide the evolution of humanity. Only those who are pure in heart can live here. They enjoy happiness and peace, but do not even recognize the suffering of the outside world. It is said that love and virtue reign in this kingdom. Injustices never manifest. Its people have a very deep spiritual knowledge. Its cultural virtues are based on law, art, and a general knowledge that is far higher than that attained by humans in the outside world. Many adventurers and explorers have tried in vain to locate this mystical kingdom. According to some, Shambhala may be located in the mountain regions of Eurasia and hidden from the outside world. According to the ancient text Zhang Zung, Shambhala is identified to the Saltji Valley in Himachal Pradesh, while people in the nation of Mongolia identify it with certain valleys of southern Siberia. Information about this kingdom first popped up in Western civilization when a Portuguese Catholic clergyman named Estavio Casella learned of the story from local people. Then in 1833, a Hungarian scholar named Sandor Corazon Kozma even provided the coordinates of Shambhala as somewhere between 45 degrees and 55 degrees north latitude. The legend of Shambhala also drew the attention of Nicholas Roerich, who was a follower of esoteric and theosophical studies. Curiosity drove him to explore the daunting terrain from the Gobi Desert to the Altai Mountains in Mongolia from 1923 until 1928. His trip crossed 35 of the highest mountain peaks in the world. But even with this tremendous effort, Roerich still could not locate the hidden kingdom. Even the Nazis, who were extremely interested in the esoteric world of Tibet, sent search expeditions in 1930, 1934, and 1938. However, none of the expeditions were successful, or at least none of the explorers admitted to finding Shambhala. Some researchers maintain that Shambhala can only be discovered as a symbol, a liaison between the real world and a world that exists beyond the earthly plane. Maybe Shambhala is a place in our hearts, but there are others who believe that Shambhala is a real location, possibly existing underground or on a higher dimensional plane. For centuries, the Tibetans have believed in the existence of certain locations or realms as being reservoirs of ancient knowledge and advanced technology. As we saw in the last chapter, the descendants of ancient Lemuria are said to reside peacefully in subterranean caverns underneath the Tibetan plateau, and they do not interfere in the lives of humans who live on the surface of the planet. Nor is there any discernible interaction between those beings in Agartha and the people on earth. Greek mystery schools. The ancient Greeks took the concept of esoteric to a new level. The famous oracle at Delphi was merely one temple in a network of many oracle temples. People would travel from all over the known world to hear communications from the spiritual world. These communications, direct from the gods and goddesses, inspired the greatest authors, poets, and philosophers of the classical world. Each Greek temple was a communication center. Greek priests designated a local deity for each temple. Each of the temples in this network were located at precisely 5-degree intervals of latitude from the capital city of Thebes, and throughout the Mediterranean area as far north as the Baltic Sea. Among other functions, the shrines served as a grid, housing electronic beacons later called Omophalos stones. The grid arrangement of oracle sites can only be seen from miles above the earth. The original network of electronic communication beacons were disabled when the priesthood was dispersed, and they were replaced by carved stones. Ancient Greece spawned several mystery schools, each with its own oracle or secret teachings. The Greek oracle temple at Delos was built upon a prehistoric megalithic site that predates Stonehenge. The Dodona oracle allowed seers and mediums to have contact with the spirits of Zeus or Jupiter, known in many cults as the royal planet. Another cult known as the Mysteries of Mithras formed around the original cave of Mithras. Similar to other ancient mystery religions, such as the Eleusinian Mysteries and the Mysteries of Isis, Mithraism also maintains strict secrecy about its teachings and practices, and revealed them only to initiates. Membership was reserved for male initiates only. Their places of worship were called Mithraeum and had no windows, and each temple was intended to be as dark as the original cave. Of all the cults, the Eleusinian Mystery School remains one of the greatest enigmas of ancient Greece. Over the centuries, Greece was the location of other influential seers and mystics. The book of Revelation was written by the recluse Saint John on the Greek island of Patmos. Visions and communications from spirits were received by Saint John as he lay with his head inserted into a niche inside of a cave. Ancient Greek and Rome were also the birthplaces of Western philosophy. The word logos is the Greek word for knowledge, or gnosis. Divination was an important and consistent practice of daily life. The most renowned ancient Greek philosophers, such as Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates, divined information from spirits. Socrates was just one of many thousands of intellectuals who entered the subterranean chambers and consulted the oracle at Delphi. There were many forms of divination in addition to the oracles. Lightning and thunder could provide meaning, and so to the flight of birds. And chance words spoken by demented people called Cledonism, or even the examination of organs from freshly sacrificed animals or humans. Gnosis. The word Gnostic comes from the Greek word gignoskian, meaning simply to know. This is a kind of knowledge which might be gained today by plugging one's mind into the internet and being able to download every single piece of data in an instant. In the same way, the true Gnostic, much like the mystic, could understand all things in a unique way. It is the mind tapping into the collective unconscious, also known as the Akashic records. Gnosis means knowledge of the most esoteric kind, and this is the story that has been hidden from our eyes. It is the truth of the secret societies that we, on the outside, are supposedly too primitive to comprehend. Like the ancient Egyptians, the Druids held ritual worshiping a sun god at Neolithic, megalithic structures, not only at Stonehenge, but throughout Europe when it was entirely pagan. There seemed to be a common practice of mapping the heavens and charting the passing of the sun and moon by using giant stones inserted into the ground. It was almost as if the originators of Islam, Hinduism, shamanism, Buddhism, and Christianity all tapped into a telepathically derived wisdom, or gnosis. Even the Native Americans in Ohio built a giant earthwork called Serpent Mound, indicating that they understood the sperm, egg, birth, fertilization process. This was conceived hundreds of years before the microscope. The Mayans predicted dozens of future solar eclipses, more than 3 centuries before the first telescope was invented. It was a combination of deep meditative trances mixed with the constant rigors of psychic training that allowed the ancients full use of their third eye, a subject that will be discussed in an upcoming chapter. With the recent seismic changes in the Catholic Church and Christianity in general, the idea of gnosis has returned to reclaim esoteric Christianity, including the study and work of adepts such as Emanuel Swedenborg, George Gurdjieff, Thomas Merton, and Rudolf Steiner. When we humans progress past materialism and discern that each one of us has a multidimensional nature as spiritual beings, we will begin to understand the history of the West differently. Christ's life and his sacrifice have had a profound influence on Western thought. However, the established idea that faith in Christ automatically saves the soul of a believer is oversimplified and misleading. More to the point is that with Christ's teachings, we have the capacity to overcome temptation and impulse, and to influence and eventually transform the physical and material realms through conscious inner work. It would seem that Jesus did exist and was capable of miracles, and miracles continue to happen all the time. That kind of power could become available to any of us when we master the dictates of the ego and learn to call upon our untapped inner resources, and as limited ego perception begins to dissolve. According to esoteric Christianity, connecting to one's inner essence results in loving action in the world and determines our karmic fate. In times long gone, our ancestors saw through the illusion of physical reality and recognized that there was another way. They discovered that in order for humans to elevate above the level of the grindstone, we needed to alter our internal dialogue. Humans have to understand our limited consciousness and the conflicted inner dialogue that drives us to polarity. The unique understanding that there could be a higher goal for humankind, attainable first individually and then shared collectively, evolved into what we now call Gnosticism. Of course, this is a massive oversimplification, yet it is doable by commitment to a disciplined spiritual practice. As we have been told by the masters, it is from practice that many come to experience what most would call otherworldly emotions or visions. Furthermore, regardless of popular perception, the early Christians were not only Gnostics, but also mystics. Noetic sciences. The term noetic derives from the Greek word for mind, specifically the higher knowing or intuitive mind. The Institute of Noetic Sciences, or IONS, in Petaluma, California, is an outside-the-box research institute exploring the intersection between science and consciousness. Founded by astronaut Edgar Mitchell, the 6th man to walk on the moon in the Apollo missions, this group is helping people around the world to develop expanded awareness and extend more fluidity in their intelligence. Noetic scientists study expanded consciousness and amplified human abilities and how to apply that knowledge to enhancing human well being and the quality of life on the planet. ION's founder, CEO Marilyn Schultz, PhD, says, "We have harnessed a group of pioneers who are interested in asking the unasked questions." Cassandra Vaitian, PhD, current president and CEO, says the Institute focuses on questions such as, what is the fundamental nature of reality? Especially when looking through the lens of cutting-edge scientific tools. At IONS, she continues, our research rests on the premise that consciousness matters. What you think matters. What you feel matters. What you intend, what you pay attention to, the way you frame your reality matters. How then and why does it matter? Through a combination of contemplative practices and rigorous scientific experiments, ION's researchers state with confidence that the fundamental cause of the disasters occurring on our planet, from environmental degradation to poverty and violence, come not from without, but emanate from within and are a result of our limited consciousness. Our consciousness, however, can be expanded for the common good. It has been categorically and scientifically proven that the human mind has power over matter and the physical world. Schultz cites an experiment in which one subject, using her thoughts alone, attempted to alter the vital signs of a second subject in a sealed room with positive results. Dean Radon, ION senior scientist and author of the 2013 book Supernormal, notes that minds are powerful. For example, one of his experiments looks at the effects of consciousness on the way genes express using a kind of clairvoyance detector. What we are learning from our research, Radon says, is that your attention, your intentions, not only kind of shape your own perception of reality, but something about reality itself. A third experiment, initially run hundreds of times at Princeton University, involves machines called random number generators, which noetic researchers have placed on almost every continent. Marilyn Schultz says they are especially electronic coin flippers. So if you imagine flipping a coin 100 times, you would expect, based on normal probability distribution, that you'd get an equal number of heads and tails. In some experiments, she says, human thought alone has affected these machines, changing the ratio of heads to tails. Specifically, whenever a great many people focus their attention or consciousness on something similar, for example, around Christmas time, baseball world championships, or the funeral of Lady Diana in England, then certain random number generators in computers start to deliver more ordered numbers instead of random ones. This suggests an ordered group consciousness creates order in its whole surroundings. The takeaway is that the human mind actually has the ability to affect matter. A secret US government program, in fact, was designed to develop the human ability to directly perceive at remote distances. This is another extended human ability that has been scientifically documented by ION's experiments. Called remote viewing, the government initially denied the existence of this program and called those who talked about it conspiracy theorists. Yet, in 1995, declassified documents were released revealing that the government had indeed spent many millions on this top secret project and that the program had overwhelmingly positive results. These hopeful breakthroughs have discovered that we do have the tools to combat the status quo. Unfortunately, every scientific breakthrough in human development, whether it was the discovery of fire, nuclear power, or the power to mentally affect matter, has eventually been turned into a weapon. Our task is to join together with others in a collective expanded consciousness with the intention to use these extended mental capacities only for good rather than yielding to our darker, selfish side. Or perhaps those inclined to the dark side have already adapted its usage and prefer that the rest of us remain ignorant to the vast potential of our human minds. Secrets of the Illuminati. The secret organization known as the Illuminati, or the Ancient Illuminated Seers of Bavaria, was initially called the Order of the Perfect Bellists, and it was founded on May 1st, 1776, by a young professor of natural and canon law at the University of Ingolstadt in Bavaria, Germany. He was Adam Weishaupt, a Jew brought up as a Catholic who converted to Protestantism. Acting on a strong interest in esoteric traditions, he joined the Freemasons in 1774. Weishaupt was a firm believer in the secret doctrines and ancient wisdom teachings, which he believed to lie at the heart of both Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism. Fabled as a secret society, Freemasons see themselves as an esoteric fraternity whose ancient brotherhood of initiates are voted into membership for the purpose of sharing enlightened thought through the use of exclusive teachings. They are not a religious group, yet holding a belief in a higher supreme being is required. Elevated status can be obtained by invitation to the various esteemed rites, including those based on the legendary Knights Templar. Their full proper title is the United Religious, Military, and Masonic Orders of the Temple and of St. John of Jerusalem, Palestine, Rhodes, and Malta. Many historians trace Masonic roots to the historical Christian Knights Templar militia that once upon a time nearly bankrupted the Vatican before they were ruthlessly crushed. Freemasonry arose from the ashes of the Knights Templar, but it took several centuries for them to come out of hiding. Although a mostly Christian organization, members of other religions are supposedly welcome to join. Despite an effort to distance themselves from politics and religion in modern times, Scandinavian branches to this day will only permit entry of fellow Christian worshippers. Women remain excluded, although women may join other Masonic orders. As we shall see, the Illuminati, Freemasons, and Zionists are behind almost every major political, financial, and international think tank institution of the Western Hemisphere. These include the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, Bank for International Settlements, Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, Bilderberg Group, United Nations, European Union, and the International Criminal Court, to name a few of the largest. Their aim is to work behind the scenes, to brainwash the masses into accepting a global government, centralized economic control, and eventually a single world religion of their own design. A long history of deception. The humans of Earth have been subjected to a life of deception that began thousands of years ago. If we can believe the ancient texts, Our world was created as a paradise, but it was turned into something completely opposite. Wisdom traditions explain this tragic shift in various ways. This esoteric series takes the position that, although a fantastic notion, people will eventually have to accept the possibility that malevolent ETs have been manipulating humans for at least 5,400 years, if not much longer. Benevolent visitors also want to make themselves known to our world, but are being stopped by the very few rich and powerful individuals that control the human population by threatening to destroy the world if disclosure is allowed. Humans have been proven to be capable of heinous deeds throughout history. The freeing of the slaves during the Civil War won't compare to the liberation of our planet once the current mental slavery agenda is exposed. Our history has been rewritten for consumption by the general public, and there are many buried secrets. The controlling elite would prefer that common people, or sheeple as they call us, remain perpetually ignorant. They believe that the population is not ready for full disclosure or the tapping into our potential as superhumans. They know, however, that the truth will come out eventually. The watchers, presumed to be benevolent overseers, have rules, and they can only interfere under vital circumstances. While they push the boundaries of their own rules in an attempt to warn us, most of these signs go unnoticed, such as in the form of crop circles. Most of the population is so focused on their daily personal concerns and mostly related to money that they're oblivious to everything else around them. Society has been shaped to be this way, usually because of the illusionary belief that money equals safety. A money-focused people are easier to control, especially when they perceive the world is falling apart. The Luciferian Manifesto, also regarded as the fall of man and its aftermath, is essentially the belief that humans are defined by their carnal appetites and desires, such as greed, power, and lust, rather than by developing their innate soul and spiritual ideals, such as truth, justice, and beauty. Humans serve Lucifer by giving in to these temptations, especially by being an accomplice in their own destruction. The Illuminati always promoted the indulgence in base instincts, calling it sexual liberation and open marriage. Their psychology has always aggrandized the material world and operated against self-discipline. However, without an awareness of the true self and our spiritual strength, the Luciferian philosophy creates disaster. In this view of Luciferianism, human is God, and the self-serving desires of the Illuminati are the measure of all things. The Catholic Church has also shaped Western thought for centuries and ruled with a fearsome fist since the Middle Ages in Europe. Galileo was placed under house arrest until the day he died for claiming the earth revolved around the sun. In those oppressive times, secret societies served a vital function, as they were one of the very few ways to preserve and foster knowledge suppressed by the church. Yet, whenever there is secrecy, the potential for corruption and manipulation increases dramatically. In times of great oppression, like that of medieval Europe and the pre-revolutionary American colonies, secrecy was a vital means of sharing banned information, such as plans to bring positive change to people's lives. Yet, particularly in more peaceful times, that same secrecy can and has been used to forward agendas that support only the privileged few. Very few people know about the Bohemian Club, Davos, the Council of 300, the Club of Rome, and other secret gatherings of the global elite. Why is there so little media coverage of these powerful conclaves, even when these influential members' lives are usually daily fodder for the tabloid press? In this modern era of the internet and easy access to knowledge, does the secrecy of the Masons and other secret societies play a useful role in our world any longer? Is there a positive purpose for the most wealthy and powerful people in the world to meet behind closed doors without public scrutiny? What if they are hoarding vital information that could give us superhuman abilities or greatly extended lifespan? Or worse, what if they are set on enslaving or even exterminating a majority of the human race? These control questions and many others will be the thrust of our inquiry in the next section.